In the same market, two men borrowed the same amount of money, same coins, same contract, same risk. A lender placed a small bag of silver between them. The first man barely hesitated. He looked at the paper, nodded, and signed. Then he walked away, almost relaxed. The second man did something different. He paused, not for a second, long enough for people nearby to notice. His hand hovered above the contract. His eyes dropped. His shoulders tightened. And when he finally signed, he didn't look relieved. He looked heavier. Now, here's what makes this strange. They borrowed the same amount, from the same lender, at the same moment. Nothing about the deal was different, and yet, one man walked away like he had just opened a door. The other walked away like he had just picked up a weight. If you think about your own life, you've probably experienced something like this. Two people swipe a credit card for the same amount. One doesn't think twice. The other feels a small pause, a moment of doubt, a quiet question in their head. Same action, different feeling. So what actually changed? Was it the money? Or something deeper? Something invisible, but powerful enough to change how the same decision feels? This empire was built on movement. Caravans arrived from the east carrying silk spices and stories from distant lands. Ships came from the west bringing metal tools and new ideas. The market was always alive, voices calling out prices, hands exchanging goods, coins moving constantly from one person to another. Every day, people borrowed, not because they were careless, but because borrowing was part of how things moved forward. A merchant needed more goods, so he borrowed. A trader wanted to expand, so he borrowed. A journey required risk, so it was funded by borrowed money. On the surface, everything looked simple. Money came in, money went out, like water flowing through the city. But underneath all that movement, something stayed very still, meaning. Because not everyone in this city saw debt the same way. For some people, borrowing felt like using a tool, like using a cart to carry heavy goods, like using a ship to cross the sea. You don't feel emotional about a cart. You don't feel guilty about a ship. You just use them, because they help you move forward. For others, it felt completely different. It felt personal, like asking for help when you were supposed to handle things yourself, like carrying something invisible, but still feeling like others could see it. Think about your own life again. Two people buy the same thing. One person chooses to pay later and moves on. The other waits. They open their banking app, close it, open it again. They think about their bills, their savings, their future. They imagine what could go wrong. Same purchase, same price, same option, but completely different experience. Back in that market, money moved, but meaning stayed. That evening, the apprentice followed the second man home. The noise of the market slowly disappeared behind them. The streets became quieter, and the pace slowed down. Inside the house, everything felt calm. A small table, a simple meal, family members sitting together. Everything looked normal until the man placed the contract on the table. No one touched it, no one asked about it, no one mentioned it, but everyone felt it. The room changed. Not in a loud way, in a quiet way. If you've ever borrowed money from someone close, you might know this feeling. Nothing has gone wrong. No missed payments, no problems yet, but something shifts. You become more careful, more aware. You start thinking about things you didn't think about before. Did I really need this? Will they see me differently? How fast can I make this right? You speak a little differently. You act a little differently, even when nothing has happened yet. Back in that house, the apprentice understood something important. In this world, debt didn't stay on paper. It followed you home. It sat at your table. It entered your thoughts, even in silence. Because here, debt was not just about money. It was about identity, reputation, how you were seen by others and by yourself. It wasn't just something you owed. It was something you felt. Debt was not something you carried in your wallet. It was something you carried in your name. The next morning, the apprentice went looking for the first man. He found him near the harbor, but this place felt completely different. Faster, sharper, focused. Inside a merchant house, people were gathered around a large table. Maps covered the surface. Routes stretched across land and sea. Numbers were written, erased, and written again. And right theirs was the same loan from yesterday. But here, it didn't feel heavy. It felt active, alive. The man wasn't focused on the debt itself. He was focused on what the debt could do. More goods to sell, new markets to reach, bigger opportunities ahead. If you've ever spent money to improve something in your life, to learn a skill, to start a small project, to invest in something that might grow, you've probably felt this. The focus isn't on what you owe, it's on what becomes possible. Back in the merchant house, no one whispered about borrowing.
We can see the growth
No
potential.
one avoided the topic.
Yes, and the team
No one
structure
treated it like something uncomfortable. It was normal, expected, part of how things worked, like roads, like ships, like trade itself. And here's what made it even more interesting. This man wasn't careless. He didn't ignore risk. He tracked every number. He planned every move. He respected the debt. But he didn't carry it emotionally. To him, it wasn't something following him home. It was something pushing him forward. The same debt that made one man feel smaller was the same debt helping another man grow. Not because the money was different, but because the meaning behind it was different. The apprentice kept watching and comparing. Same market, same system, same rules, different reactions. He noticed small patterns. Some people lowered their voices when talking about debt. Others spoke about it openly. Some avoided it completely. Others built plans around it. If you look at your own life, you'll see the same thing. Some people avoid credit completely. Others use it daily. Some feel stress just hearing the word debt. Others see it as a normal tool. Same system, different experience. And those differences change decisions. But then, the apprentice noticed something deeper. It wasn't just about culture. It was also about pressure. In the market, some people borrowed not because they wanted to, but because they felt like they had to keep up, to not fall behind, to stay at the same level as everyone else. And suddenly, debt changed again. It wasn't just a tool, it wasn't just a burden, it became something else, a way to maintain an image. Think about today. People upgrade things they don't need to upgrade. People buy things they didn't plan to buy. Not because they truly need them, but because everyone around them already has them. And when that happens, debt stops being about opportunity. It becomes about comparison. And comparison creates a different kind of weight, not just financial, but emotional. Because now, it's not just about money. It's about belonging, about identity, about not being left behind. And that kind of pressure feels very different. That's when the apprentice finally understood. The money was never the real story. The meaning was. Because money itself is neutral. It doesn't carry fear. It doesn't carry pride. We add those things through what we're taught, through what we see growing up, through how people around us react. Some people grow up hearing, "Stay away from debt. Be careful, don't owe anyone." Others grow up hearing, "Use money wisely. Take opportunities. Think long term." Neither is completely right, neither is completely wrong, but they create very different emotional reactions. And those reactions shape decisions. People don't just borrow money. They borrow the meaning their world gives to that money, and that meaning stays with them. Time passed. The city changed. Things became faster, easier, more convenient. Contracts became smaller. Decisions became quicker. Eventually, borrowing no longer required a table, or a conversation, or even another person. Today, you tap a screen, pay later. Split into payments approved, no waiting, no pressure in the room. No one watching, just you, and a decision. And sometimes, it doesn't even feel like borrowing. It feels like convenience, like ordering food, like booking a ride, like clicking a button. Normal, every day. But not everyone feels the same. Some people tap without thinking, others pause. They check again, they hesitate, they feel something, even if they can't explain it. Same system, different emotion. The easier debt becomes, the more invisible it feels. And when something feels invisible, we stop questioning it. The apprentice stood in the middle of the city, watching everything, not focusing on the coins, not focusing on the contracts, but focusing on something harder to see. Meaning, because in one direction, debt felt like something you had to remove as quickly as possible. In another direction, it felt like something you could use. And most people lived somewhere in between, sometimes confident, sometimes pressured, sometimes both at the same time. And that's when he understood. Maybe the question was never, is debt good or bad, because the answer depends. Instead, the real question is, what does debt feel like to you? Because that feeling shapes everything. Your decisions, your risks, your future. For some people, debt feels like pressure, a quiet weight in the background. For others, it feels like possibility, a tool to move forward. And for many, it's both at the same time. But here's the part most people never stop to think about. That feeling didn't come from the money. It came from what you learned, from your environment, from your experiences, from the world around you. So think about it. When you hear the word debt, what do you feel first, pressure or possibility? And did you choose that feeling, or did your world choose it for you? Because in the end, the money is the same, the system is different, the feeling is learned.